I took a deep breath, smoothing down my skirt before I pushed open the heavy oak door to Brooks's new office. The plaque on the door read, Brooks Harley, President. Shiny and brand new, just a week old. My husband glanced up from his computer, his eyebrows pulled together in a focused frown. Zelina, I'm swamped. What is it? He said, sounding impatient. I forced a smile and held up a folder. The Henderson account files are ready for your review, and the staff meeting is set to start in 10 minutes. Without looking up, Brooks waved his hand dismissively. Cancel it. I've got more important things to handle. Brooks, I said gently, everyone's been working on their presentations all week. They're expecting you. I said cancel it, he snapped, his eyes glued to the screen. That's an order, not a request. I bit my lip, feeling the sting of his tone, and gave a curt nod before stepping back. As I closed the door, I caught a glimpse of Brooks's reflection in the window. He was already absorbed in his work again, totally unaware of how hurtful his words had been. Outside his office, I leaned against the wall, willing myself to calm down. This wasn't the Brooks I had married. The man I'd fallen in love with had been passionate about his work in architecture and truly cared about his team. Now, with this new title, he seemed like a completely different person, cold, distant, almost as if the power had gone straight to his head. Is everything okay, Zelina? I looked up to see Cruz, Brooks's father, watching me with concern. Even though he was retired, he still visited the office regularly. I straightened up and tried to smile. Of course, just a busy morning. How are you, Cruz? He studied my face, clearly unconvinced. I'm fine, but you don't look it. What's my son done now? I hesitated, torn between defending Brooks and admitting my frustrations. It's nothing really. Brooks is just adjusting to his new role. Cruz's eyes narrowed. Adjusting or letting it go to his head? Before I could respond, Brooks's voice boomed from his office. Zelina, where are those files? I grabbed the folder from my desk, throwing Cruz an apologetic glance. Duty calls. When I re-entered Brooks's office, he barely looked up. Finally, leave them there and close the door on your way out. Taking a deep breath to steady myself, I said, Brooks, the team really needs you at this meeting. They've worked hard. He slammed his hand down on the desk, cutting me off. For God's sake, Zelina. I'm the president now. I decide what's important. Not you, not anyone else. Got it. I flinched, stunned by his outburst. I'm just trying to help Brooks. This company means everything to your father, and I promised him I'd. My father isn't in charge anymore, he interrupted coldly. I am. And if you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be here either. His words hit me like a slap. I stared at him, searching for any sign of the man I loved, but all I saw was a stranger, blinded by power and pride. Fine, I whispered. I'll cancel the meeting. As I turned to leave, Brooks's phone buzzed. He answered, his voice shifting to a smooth, almost charming tone. Juniper, darling, yes. I can't wait for our business lunch. See you soon. My hand froze on the door handle. Juniper? The name was unfamiliar, but the way he said it sent a chill through me. I glanced back, catching a sly smile on his face before he noticed me watching. What? He snapped. Don't you have work to do? I nodded silently and fled the office, my mind spinning. Outside, the disappointed faces of our team members met me as I announced the canceled meeting. Their frustration was clear, but it was nothing compared to the sinking dread growing inside me. Who was Juniper? And why did she make my husband smile like that? I sank into my chair, feeling a weight on my chest. For the first time, I realized my marriage and this company might be heading into a storm none of us were prepared for. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, determined to pick up the pieces from yesterday. As I walked through the main area, I could feel the tension. Whispered conversations stopped as I passed by, replaced by forced smiles and awkward nods. Morning, Zelina. Azra, our lead designer, called out. Any word on rescheduling the meetings? I hesitated, struggling to find the right words. I'm working on it, Azra. Brooks is still adjusting to his new role. Azra raised her eyebrows. Adjusting? Is that what we're calling it now? Before I could respond, Brooks's loud voice echoed through the office. Selena. My office, now. I hurried to his door, bracing myself. He was pacing back and forth, frustration radiating from him. What the hell is this? He thrust a stack of papers into my hands. I looked at the top sheet and felt my stomach drop. It was a formal complaint from the design team, mentioning Brooks's absence from important meetings and delays in project approvals. Brooks, they're just frustrated. If we could set up a meeting to address their concerns, he scoffed. I'm running a business, not a daycare. If they can't handle the pressure, they can leave. But, Brooks, these are your father's most trusted employees. They've been with the company for years. His eyes flashed with anger. My father isn't in charge anymore. I am. And I won't have my authority questioned by a bunch of whiny designers. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Brooks, please. This isn't like you. What's really going on? For a moment, I thought I saw a glimpse of the old Brooks, a flicker of vulnerability, maybe even doubt. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Nothing's going on, he snapped. Just your job and keep them in line. That's what I'm paying you for, isn't it? The words stung more than he knew. I wasn't just an employee. I was his partner, his wife. But right now, I felt like a stranger in my own life, watching helplessly as the man I loved seemed to slip away. I was his wife, his partner, or at least I thought I was. As I turned to leave Brooks's office, his phone buzzed, drawing his attention. A sly smile spread across his face as he looked at the screen. I'm heading out for lunch. Hold my calls, he said, already halfway out the door. But Brooks, we have a client meeting at 1, I reminded him. Reschedule it, he replied, not even pausing as he disappeared down the hallway. Watching him leave, a knot tightened in my stomach. This was more than just a demanding job. Something else was going on, something that made my heart sink. Back at my desk, I tried to distract myself, putting out fires by answering emails and calming clients upset about project delays. I soothed frustrated staff members, trying to keep the team from falling apart. By mid-afternoon, I was exhausted and emotionally drained. A gentle knock on my cubicle startled me. I looked up to see Cruz, his face etched with concern. Selena, dear, do you have a minute? I nodded, grateful for a break. Cruz pulled up a chair across from me, his eyes warm but searching. I've been hearing things, he began softly, about Brooks and how he's handling the company. I swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Cruz had poured his life into building this company, trusting Brooks to lead it. How could I tell him that it was all coming undone? Cruz, I started, but he held up a hand to stop me. You don't have to protect him from me, Selena. I've sensed something's been wrong for a while now. I just hoped he'd adjust to the role. Tears pricked at my eyes. I don't know what to do, I whispered. He won't listen to me, and he's pushing everyone away. Cruz reached across the desk, taking my hand. We'll figure this out, Selena. Together. This company, this family, it means everything to me. I can't stand by and let Brooks destroy it. Just then, Brooks's voice echoed through the office, loud and irritated. Where the hell is everyone? Don't we have work to do? Cruz and I exchanged a look. The storm was far from over, but his words gave me a sliver of hope. Together, we'd find a way through. But as I rounded the corner and saw Brooks standing there with his tie askew and a faint trace of lipstick on his collar, that hope flickered and died. The man I'd once loved seemed to be slipping away, and I felt helpless to stop it. After another exhausting day of managing the fallout of Brooks's behavior, I drove home feeling drained. All I wanted was a hot bath and a glass of wine. As I reached for my keys, the front door swung open, and a stunning blonde stepped out. Her lipstick was smudged, and her blouse was buttoned in a hurry. She froze when she saw me, her eyes widening in recognition. "Oh, you must be Selena," she said, recovering quickly. "I'm Juniper, Brooks's consultant." My world tilted as I processed her words. Juniper. The name from Brooks's phone call. The lipstick on his collar. Everything clicked into place with sickening clarity. Consultant? I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Juniper's lips curled into a smirk. Oh yes, Brooks and I have been working very closely together. He's quite the visionary, you know. Before I could respond, Brooks appeared in the doorway, his face pale. Zelina, you're home early. He looked like a deer caught in headlights, his expression flickering between panic and calculation. Juniper was just leaving, he said quickly, ushering her toward her car. They exchanged a knowing glance before she drove off, leaving me alone with a man I suddenly felt I didn't know at all. I brushed past Brooks and walked into the house, my mind reeling. He followed me inside, already making excuses. Zelina, it's not what you think, he stammered. Juniper's just helping with some new projects. We were brainstorming ideas for... I whirled around to face him. Don't you dare lie to me, Brooks. Not now. He faltered, his confident mask slipping. I didn't mean for this to happen. It just did. It just happened? I repeated, my voice rising. Like how you just happened to neglect your responsibilities at work. Like how you just happened to treat our employees and friends like dirt. Brooks's face hardened. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Dad left me with impossible expectations. I'm doing the best I can. By having an affair? By running the company into the ground. He looked away, frustration lining his face. Look, things got complicated. But I can fix this. We can fix this. I let out a bitter laugh. We? There is no we anymore, Brooks. You made sure of that. The truth of my words hit me, and I realized how deeply I meant them. Whatever we'd once had, our marriage, our partnership, it was shattered by his choices and my blind loyalty. Brooks's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, a flash of guilt crossing his face. It's Juniper, isn't it? I said quietly. He didn't deny it. Zelina, please let me explain, he pleaded, but I was done listening, done making excuses for him. I grabbed my keys and turned toward the door. Where are you going? Brooks called after me. Away from you, I said, voice firm. I need to think. I drove through the darkening streets, tears blurring my vision. How had it come to this? The man I loved, the life we'd built together. It was all unraveling, and I felt powerless to hold it together. My phone rang, and Cruz's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, but answered. Zelina, are you all right? You left the office so suddenly, he said, his concern breaking the last piece of my resolve. I poured out everything. Brooks's affair, the chaos at the company, and the emptiness I felt inside. Cruz listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he spoke softly. Oh, Zelina, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. I never should have put so much pressure on Brooks. It's not your fault, I insisted. Brooks made his choices. Perhaps, Cruz sighed. But now we need to make ours. Come over to my house. We'll figure this out together. As I turned toward Cruz's neighborhood, a strange calm settled over me. The worst had happened. Brooks's betrayal was out in the open, but I wasn't alone. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of strength return. Whatever lay ahead, I was ready to face it. No more excuses, no more blind loyalty. It was time to stand up for myself and protect the company that had become my second home. The next morning, I walked into the office with my head held high, despite the whispers and curious glances. After my conversation with Cruz, I felt a newfound determination. This wasn't just about saving the company, it was about saving myself. I was ready to fight for the life and career I deserved that I was his wife, his partner. At least I thought I was. Nothing could have prepared me for the sight that greeted me when I rounded the corner in the office. Standing right in the middle of the bullpen was Brooks, his arm wrapped around Juniper's waist. She was dressed in a pencil skirt and blouse that would have suited me once, not so long ago. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Juniper, Brooks announced, his voice echoing in the stunned silence. She'll be joining our team as a special consultant. My heart pounded as I met Brooks's gaze. His expression was a challenge, daring me to react, to make a scene in front of everyone. Juniper looked at me, a smug smile on her face, clearly enjoying her new role, both in the company and, apparently, in Brooks's life. Azura, our lead designer, was the first to speak. But, Mr. Harley, we already have a full team. And Zelina. Zelina will be assisting Juniper in getting up to speed, Brooks interrupted smoothly, not even looking my way. Won't you, dears? I felt everyone's eyes on me, some filled with pity, others with uncomfortable curiosity. I took a deep breath, forcing a tight smile. Of course, I managed, my voice barely steady. Welcome aboard, Juniper. The rest of the day passed in a haze of forced smiles and awkward introductions. I escaped to my office, trying to focus on work, but my mind kept replaying Brooks's betrayal. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? A knock at my door brought me back to the present. It was Cruz, his face etched with worry. Zelina, I just heard. Are you all right? I shook my head, fighting back tears. I don't know how much more of this I can take, Cruz. It's like Brooks is trying to hurt me in every way possible. Cruz's jaw tightened. This has gone far enough. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. Brooks's actions are completely unacceptable. Before I could respond, Brooks stormed into the room, his face flushed with anger. What do you think you're doing, Dad? He demanded, glaring at Cruz. This is my company now. You can't just waltz in and... Enough. Cruz's voice boomed, silencing Brooks. You've made a mockery of everything I built. It's time you face the consequences. Brooks's eyes narrowed, a defiant smirk on his face. Consequences? I'm just getting started. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, tossing it onto my desk. Consider this my first official act as president. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by Brooks. Disbelief washed over me. You're firing me? I whispered, barely able to process the betrayal. Brooks's laugh was cold. Firing you? No, Zelina. I'm setting you free from this job, from this marriage, from everything. I stared down at the papers, feeling my world collapse around me. Years of shared dreams, all reduced to a few sheets of legal jargon. Brooks, please, Cruz pleaded, a note of desperation in his voice. Think about what you're doing. Zelina has been the backbone of this company. Without her, we'll finally move forward, Brooks snapped. Face it, Dad. Your way of doing things is outdated. Juniper and I have big plans for the future. As the two of them argued, a strange calm washed over me. I looked down at the divorce papers, then up at Brooks, this stranger wearing my husband's face. In that moment, I made a decision. I'll sign, I said quietly, cutting through their heated exchange. Both men stopped, stunned. Brooks recovered first, a victorious smirk spreading across his face. I knew you'd see reason, Zelina. It's for the best, really. I met his gaze, my expression steady. You're right, Brooks. It is for the best, but not for the reasons you think. With a steady hand, I signed the papers. As I did, I felt an unexpected weight lift from my shoulders. Brooks had destroyed our marriage, but I was done being a victim. I quit, I announced, standing up. Effective immediately. Brooks's smirk faltered. What? You can't just... I can and I am, I interrupted. Good luck running this company without me, Brooks. You're going to need it. As I walked out, my head held high, I heard Cruz call after me. Zelina, wait. I paused, turning back. Cruz's eyes held a mixture of pride and determination. I have a proposition for you, he said, his voice steady. One that might just save this company and give you the fresh start you deserve. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. Later, I sat across from Cruz in his cozy home office, a warm mug of tea in my hands. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions after the events of the past few days. Zelina, Cruz began, his voice gentle yet firm, I want you to come work with me in my nonprofit architectural trust. We need someone with your skills and integrity. I blinked, surprised. But Cruz, what about the company? What about Brooks? Brooks made his choice, Cruz replied, a touch of sadness in his eyes. Now it's time for you to make yours. As I considered his offer, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Azure SOS. Everything's falling apart here. Brooks and Juniper are running the place into the ground. We need you, Zelina. My heart ached. Despite everything, I still cared deeply about the company and the people I'd worked alongside for years. I need some time to think, I told Cruz. He nodded. Of course. But don't take too long. We both know Brooks won't waste time tearing down what we've built. The next morning, I steeled myself and entered the office one last time to gather my things. The air was thick with tension. Whispered conversations stopped as I walked by. As I packed up my desk, Azura appeared in the doorway, her face drawn with worry. Zelina, thank God you're here. It's a disaster. Brooks canceled 3 major projects, and Juniper's reassigning teams without any regard for their experience. Clients are furious. I sighed, feeling the weight of it all. I don't work here anymore, Azura. There's nothing I can do. Her eyes widened. You're leaving? But what about us? What about the companies? Before I could answer, Brooks's voice boomed from down the hall. Zelina, what are you doing here? He stormed into the room, Juniper trailing behind him, her face smug. I'm just collecting my things, I said calmly, refusing to let him intimidate me. Brooks's eyes narrowed. Good. The sooner you're gone, the better. Juniper is more than capable of handling your responsibilities. I couldn't help but let out a laugh. Is she? Is that why clients are threatening to leave and the team is in chaos? Juniper stepped forward, digging her manicured nails into Brooks's arm. I'll have you know I'm doing an excellent job. Brooks thinks I'm a natural. I looked at her, pity mingling with my anger. I'm sure you do, Juniper. Best of luck, you're going to need it. With one final glance around the office, I picked up my things and walked out, leaving Brooks and Juniper behind. I didn't look back. This chapter was over, and a new one was waiting. As I headed toward the exit, Cruz's offer replayed in my mind, filling me with purpose. Whatever the future held, I was ready to face it. This time, on my own terms, I caught a glimpse of Brooks, standing in the shadows at the edge of the room, his face pale and defeated. Beside him, Juniper stood with her arms crossed, looking out of place and defiant. But they were part of the past now, and I was here to forge a future. As many of you know, I continued, gathering my strength, the past few weeks have been challenging for our company. We've faced significant setbacks, and I know there has been uncertainty and frustration among all of you. But today marks a new beginning. I paused, letting my gaze sweep across the room, meeting the eyes of familiar faces, some filled with worry, others with hope. These were my colleagues, my friends, the people who had stood by this company through thick and thin. I knew they deserved honesty and clarity. I won't sugarcoat the truth, I said, my voice firm. We have lost clients, and our reputation has taken a hit. But together, we have an opportunity to rebuild, to redefine who we are, and to restore the trust of our clients and partners. I glanced at Cruz, who was watching me with a mixture of pride and encouragement. His silent support gave me the courage to push forward. We're going to return to our roots. We'll refocus on our values, integrity, quality, and respect for our employees and clients. I believe that with hard work, transparency, and a dedication to excellence, we can bring this company back to where it belongs. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. People began to nod, some of the tension easing from their faces. There will be changes, I continued. We will rebuild our client relationships, restructure our projects, and make sure every member of our team feels valued and heard. This will not be easy, but I believe that together, we can achieve remarkable things. As I finished, the room fell silent for a moment, then applause broke out. The team looked reinvigorated, ready to move forward. I had expected to feel relief, but instead, I felt something deeper, a sense of purpose, a renewed commitment not just to the company, but to myself. After the meeting, Cruz approached me, his eyes warm with approval. You did well, Zelina. I couldn't have asked for a better leader to take the reins. Thank you, Cruz, I said, touched by his trust. It means everything to me to have your support. He smiled, patting my shoulder. This company is in good hands. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of Brooks standing nearby, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. something between regret and resentment. Juniper had already left, seemingly uninterested in the outcome. Brooks stepped forward, his face weary. "Zelina," he began, his voice low. I didn't realize how much I was throwing away. I don't know how it all got so out of control." I looked at him, the man who had once been my partner and best friend. "Brooks," I replied, my tone steady, "you made your choices. And I made mine. It's time we both move on." He nodded slowly, understanding that there was no going back. With that, I walked out of the room, leaving behind the pieces of my past and stepping firmly into my future. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to lead, to build, and to live life on my own terms. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole again, knowing that I had the strength and determination to face whatever came next. I saw Brooks slip into the back of the room, his face drawn and exhausted, while Juniper was nowhere to be seen. I took a deep breath, addressing the room with a steady voice. "We've lost clients, yes, and we've faced setbacks," I began, meeting the eyes of my colleagues. "But the heart of this company, the talent, dedication, and vision that each of you brings to your work, remains unchanged." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and I pressed on, outlining our plan to rebuild trust with clients and stabilize our finances. I could see hope flickering back into the eyes of my colleagues, a tentative belief that we could turn things around. Suddenly, Brooks's voice rang out, cutting through the air like a knife. "This is all lies," he shouted, storming down the aisle toward the podium. "Zelina is trying to steal my company. She orchestrated this entire scheme to push me out." Gasps and whispers erupted around us as heads turned to watch him. I gripped the podium, forcing myself to remain calm. "Brooks, this isn't the time or place." "It's exactly the time," he interrupted, his face flushed with anger. "You turned my own father against me. You manipulated the board, you." "That's enough." Cruz's voice boomed from the side of the stage. He strode forward and placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. "Brooks, you did this to yourself. Your choices, your actions, those are what brought us here." Brooks's wild gaze darted between Cruz and me. "Dad, please, you can't let her do this. This is our family legacy." Cruz's expression softened, but he remained firm. "Son, the legacy isn't just about the name on the building. It's about integrity, hard work, and doing right by our employees and clients. Zelina understands that. It's time you did, too." A tense silence filled the room as everyone watched, waiting to see how this would play out. Brooks's shoulders slumped, his bravado crumbling. "So, that's it? I'm just out." I stepped away from the podium and approached him cautiously. "It doesn't have to be the end, Brooks. There's still a place for you here, if you're willing to earn it back." For a moment, I thought I saw a glimmer of the man I'd once known, vulnerable and uncertain. But then, just as quickly, his expression hardened. "I don't need your pity, Zelina. Or yours, Dad. I'll start my own firm. I'll build something bigger, better. You'll see." With that, he spun on his heel and stormed out, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. I returned to the podium, acutely aware of the eyes watching me. This was the moment that would define my leadership and the future of the company. I took a breath, steadying myself. "I know that was difficult to witness," I began, my voice slightly shaky. "But this company isn't about one person's ego or ambition. It's about all of us working together to create something extraordinary." I let my gaze travel across the faces of my colleagues, some hopeful, some skeptical. "I can't promise that the road ahead will be easy, but I can promise this. Every decision I make will be in the best interest of this company and the people who make it great." As I continued outlining our path forward, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Brooks's final attempt to undermine me had failed, and now, I finally had the chance to lead on my own terms. But as I caught Cruz's eye, I saw a flicker of worry, a reminder that while one chapter had closed, another was only beginning. The real test of our resilience was still to come. 6 months passed since that fateful company meeting. I stood at the window of my new office, gazing out at the city skyline. The view was different now, not only because I was in Cruz's nonprofit trust building, but because I saw the world through new eyes. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. "Come in," I called. Azura entered, her face beaming with excitement. "Zelina, you won't believe this, the Henderson Project. We got it." A broad grin spread across my face. The Henderson Project was exactly the kind of socially responsible, innovative work I'd always dreamed of doing. "That's amazing, Azura. The team must be thrilled."
"They are," she nodded.
"And there's something else you should know." She hesitated, taking a breath. "Brooks's company, it's bankrupt. They filed for Chapter 11 this morning." The news hit me harder than I expected. Despite everything, a part of me had still hoped that Brooks would find his way. "And Brooks?" I asked softly. Azura shook her head. "No one's seen him in days." "But Juniper," she hesitated, glancing at me uncertainly. "She showed up here earlier, looking for a job," said Brooks, left her high and dry. I sank into my chair, absorbing the news. The man I'd once loved, the man I'd built a life with, was truly gone, replaced by a cautionary tale, a reminder of how quickly success could crumble when built on the wrong foundation. As if summoned by my thoughts, Cruz appeared in the doorway. "I heard the news," he said gently. "How are you holding up?" I managed a small smile. "I'm okay. It's a lot to take in." Cruz nodded, his eyes filled with pride. "You've done remarkable things here, Zelina. This new wing of the trust, the projects you're leading, you're changing lives." "We're changing lives," I corrected him. "I couldn't have done any of this without your support." He waved away my gratitude with a smile. "You did this, Zelina. You took a terrible situation and turned it into something beautiful. That's a rare gift." After Cruz and Azura left, I was left alone with my thoughts. I thought of Brooks, of the life we'd shared, and the dreams we'd once had. I thought of Juniper, whose pursuit of status had left her with nothing. And mostly, I thought of myself, the woman I'd been at the beginning of all this. Desperate to please, afraid to stand up for herself. That woman seemed like a stranger now. My phone buzzed, startling me. It was a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, it's Brooks. "Can we talk?" Asterisk. My heart raced as I stared at the screen. 6 months ago, I would have jumped at the chance. Now, I took a deep breath and typed my response. Asterisk, "I'm sorry, Brooks, but I've moved on. I hope you find peace, asterisk." As I hit send, I felt the last remnants of my old life fall away, replaced by a sense of closure and clarity. Just then, another knock came at my door. It was my team, ready to start brainstorming for the Henderson Project. "Come on in," I said, smiling. "Let's create something amazing." As we gathered around the conference table, ideas flowing freely, I felt a wave of gratitude. This was where I belonged, not defined by a relationship, but standing on my own 2 feet, surrounded by people who respected and valued me. The journey had been painful, but it had led me here, to a place of strength, purpose, and self-discovery. I looked around at the eager faces of my team and felt certain that the best was yet to come. "All right," I said, picking up a marker. "Let's reimagine the future together." And as we began to sketch out our vision, I realized that this work, this life I'd built from the ashes, was my true happily ever after. Not a fairy tale ending, but something far more valuable. A new beginning, crafted by my own hands and heart. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but I was ready for whatever challenges came my way. Because now I knew the truth. My worth wasn't determined by anyone else. It came from within, from the strength and resilience I had discovered in myself. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all.